this video, we're going to be factoring some polynomials that have an a value of 1. What that means is that when we have our number, our leading coefficient, it's a 1. So we'll have just a w squared or an x squared or an n squared, or just our variable squared there because our leading coefficient is a 1. So when we do this, we want to do our multiply add trick, which means we're looking for two numbers that will multiply to this number and we'll add to that number. So in this case, two numbers that will multiply to 3 are 3 and 1, and they also happen to add to 4. So when we set this up, we'll have our w and our w, and we'll be using the 3 and the 1, and it doesn't matter which order you write those in. We'll look at our symbols, and we see that we have a plus sign here, so that tells us that our symbols are going to be the same. So our symbols are the same. So they're either going to both be positives or both be negatives. Then we're going to look over here at our symbol right there. Let's put a little arrow there to make that a little distinctive. Because it's a minus sign, that tells us that both of our symbols are going to be minus signs. So we're going to have a w minus 3 and a w minus 1, and we have now factored that polynomial. Now what that means is that if I were to multiply this out, so if I were to FOIL this, I would end up getting w squared minus 4w plus 3 as my answer. Let's do our next example. Here we have n squared minus 12n plus 35. So we're looking for two numbers that will multiply to 35, but add to a negative 12. So if I needed to, I could list all of the different factors that would make 35 if I didn't know that 5 and 7 were what I needed. So we're going to choose 5 and 7 because 5 plus 7 is 12, which is what we need. Oops, I'm not using a w this time, we're using an n. So I'll put in my 5 and my 7, and I need to check to make sure this is going to work out. So I'm going to check the symbol, and again we have a plus sign, so that's going to tell us that these are going to be the same symbol. And I'm going to look right here, and that's going to tell me they both need to be minus signs. So I put in my minuses, and in fact, a negative 5, if I add that with a negative 7, is going to give me the negative 12 that I need, or that we need rather. And so that tells us that this is going to be the factors of n squared minus 12n plus 35. I'm going to have you do letter C on your own. When you're done, push play, and let's see if you're right. So letter C is x squared minus 14x plus 24, and two factors that will multiply to 24 but add to 14 are going to be 12 and 2. So we're going to have our factors that we'll set up, and we'll be using the 12 and the 2. We see that our symbols are supposed to be the same, and that they're both supposed to be minus signs. So we have c minus 12 and c minus 2, and we can double check simply by putting our negative signs there and adding them, and we see that that in fact gives us the negative 14 that we need. And so this is going to be our factors of x squared minus 14x plus 24. Let's take a look at letter D together. Here we have x squared plus 2x minus 15. Oh, let's go back really quickly to letter C, because that shouldn't have said C. That should have said x. I got a little carried away because we were doing problem C. All right, so back to letter D, we have x squared plus 2x minus 15. So we're looking for two numbers that will multiply to 15 and add to 2. So our factors are 1 and 15, or 3 and 5. So we're going to choose 3 and 5. Because again, those should give us our 2. So when we set up our factors, we're going to be using x and the 3 and the 5. Now this time if we look, we see that we have a minus sign instead of a plus sign. This tells us that our symbols are going to be different. So one's going to be plus and one's going to be minus. If we come and we look here, it tells us what is the bigger number going to be. And our bigger number is going to be the positive. So the 5 will get the positive and the 3 will get the negative. And we can check that if we go ahead and we come back here and put our plus signs there and our negative sign. So we have negative 3 plus a positive 5, and that gives us a positive 2, which is what we're looking for. And so we know that that is our factor for x squared plus 2x minus 15. I'm going to have you do letter E on your own. So go ahead and push pause, and when you're done, push play, and let's see if you were right. So we're looking for two numbers that will add to negative 30, multiply to negative 30, and add to 13. So I have lots of choices here. I could use 2 and 15. I could use 6 and 5. I could use 10 and 3, or 1 and 30. So as I look at these, trying to get the number 13, it looks like the 10 and the 3 are going to be my best bet. So we're going to go ahead and we'll set up our factors. We're using the letter Y, and we'll put in our 10 and our 3. We see that our symbols are supposed to be different, and that our larger number should be a positive. So we'll put in a positive by our 10 and a minus by our 3, and we can double check that by writing those in. So if I have a negative 10 and I add that to a negative 3, that's going to give me a positive 13. Wait a minute, that didn't work, because that doesn't give me a 13. That gives me the number 7. So that won't work. So 10 and 3 are not going to be our choices. So we need to go back to our factors and try again. Well, 2 and 15 might be a good choice. And since our bigger number is supposed to have the positive, we'll put our 15 with the positive and our 2 with the minus, and we'll double check that. So if we have a negative 2 and a positive 15, and we add those together, negative 2 plus positive 15 is going to give us a positive 13. So that tells us that that's what we want, and now we've made a good choice. And we're going to go ahead and then mark those as the factors of y squared plus 13y minus 30. For letter F, we're trying to find two numbers that will multiply to 42 and add to 1, because there's an imaginary 1 in front of our v. So here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use 6 and 7, because I know that 6 times 7 is 42. And we're going to see if that works. If it doesn't, then we'll write down some more factors. So we're going to be using our v and the 6 and the 7, and we're going to look at our symbols, and this tells us, again, that we need to have different symbols. And this tells us that our bigger number is going to be negative. So the 7 is the bigger number, our 6 is our smaller, and we'll double check that by putting those in. So if we take a positive 6 and we add that with a negative 7, that's going to get us a negative 1, which is exactly what we want. And so now we've got the factors for v squared minus v minus 42.